The latest from the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis, John Lynch. Is there something there between the lines that John Lynch was hinting about with wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk? And the 49ers have a new candidate for defensive coordinator. All that and more coming at you right now.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We appreciate all of our everydayers out there, and we appreciate everybody who subscribes on YouTube. Hits the thumbs up, the notification bell, and all that. We love you. And subscribes everywhere you find your podcast. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right, Croc, we got a new candidate for defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers, and it's a guy we kind of called out early on in the process. Is how come the 49ers aren't interviewing anybody from this Kansas City Chiefs defense? Has been the best defense in the league. They just thwarted the San Francisco 49ers in the Super Bowl. All the defensive backs they've been developing over the last few years. 49ers have one of them in Charvarius Ward on their roster currently. And now it turns out they are going to interview one David Merritt. Dave Merritt, the Kansas City Chiefs defensive backs coach, secondary coach. And he's been in the league for a long time. A 4-year playing career, Croc, is where it started after North Carolina State, football playing career in college. And as a coach, he's been with Tennessee Chattanooga. He's been with Virginia Military Institute. He's been with the New York Jets starting in 2001. And since then been in the NFL with the New York Giants. And then all the way up to the Arizona Cardinals in 2018. And then since 2019, he's been the defensive backs coach for the Kansas City Chiefs. So David Merritt, the new candidate on the list for the San Francisco 49ers. Now we have 4 confirmed named names for the Niners that have been interviewed for the job. 2 in-house, which is Nick Sorensen and Daniel Bullocks, both of them coaching the defensive backs for the 49ers. And Brandon Staley, former Rams defensive coordinator, former Los Angeles Chargers head coach. Now David Merritt added to the list. Croc, your thoughts?
Well, one I want to start with, do you think there's a leader in the clubhouse right now? Because there's definitely candidates. There's definitely guys that are interested in, but do you think any guy has kind of the lead right now?
I think it was Matt Barrows that reported that it's going to be Sorensen if it's in-house. But the fact that it's taking so long, and they know their in-house guys really well, and I don't think there's a lot to those interviews since they know them already so well. And they passed over all the in-house guys last year. Now, Nick Sorensen's only been with the 49ers 2 years. So he was only a 1-year staffer at that point when they hired Steve Wilkes. So I don't even know how to handicap this thing. I have no idea. I don't know if this is informational. I've seen some folks out there say, maybe this is Rooney Rule, right? But they interviewed Daniel Bullocks in-house, so they didn't need to go interview David Merritt from the Chiefs for any Rooney Rule stuff. So I don't think there's any of that going on. I think this is a legitimate candidate. And if nothing else, maybe Kyle Shanahan's like, hey, what do you guys think about our offense? Well, how do you play against our offense? Maybe Kyle Shanahan can learn a little bit of that, even if he doesn't hire David Merritt. But I have no clue, Croc, how to handicap this thing with the 49ers defensive coordinator. And they're taking it really slow.
Definitely will be kind of a different scheme. And, everybody likes to run some zone coverages, but we saw in the Super Bowl, the Kansas City Chiefs go to more of a man-based defense, and that hasn't really been the 49ers identity. Maybe Kyle Shanahan is willing to kind of switch things up for someone that can kind of bring a new kind of fresh philosophy to the 49ers defense. But overall, if I had to guess, I'd say that they want to lean towards someone that's going to continue to do the things that they like to do, how they like to do it. And we talked about it before. Sorensen just kind of looks like a defensive coordinator. He has that look. So I'm not surprised right now that he's potentially the leader in the clubhouse if, in fact, they choose somebody from in-house.
What's interesting is David Merritt was a linebacker as a player. and he coached linebackers and defensive line early in his career, then ended up being a secondary coach starting with the New York Giants in 2006. And then he's been a defensive backs coach ever since. But get this, he's a 5-time Super Bowl champion. He's got 3 with the Kansas City Chiefs. He's got 1 with the New York Giants when Steve Spagnuolo was the defensive coordinator. And he has the other one with the New York Giants as well when they won their second Eli Manning title. So 5-time Super Bowl champion. He's got more than Andy Reid, and he's got more than Steve Spagnuolo.
There's something to that. And I don't know if you heard the comments from Miko Hardman. He talked about how his time with the New York Jets and how he didn't really care for it too much, and kind of talked about how they were going about things. And he's like, look, I just came from a winning organization. This is not how you prepare to win. And he talked about guys not being on the same page and maybe leaning a little bit too much more on the defensive side of the ball than the offense side of the ball. It's like it's the Aaron Rodgers show. But you bring over a defensive back coach or linebacker coach like that, which I really like that he coached, the second level and the third level as well. A lot of knowledge there. But bringing over a guy that just has that championship mindset on how to prepare. And I'm not sure Wilkes could say that. I'm not sure that anyone on the 49ers staff could say that because they've been there, but they've lost. But taking advice or gaining knowledge from someone who wins and how they go about winning, how to go about preparing. Maybe you'd be a little bit more prepared for the overtime rules. I don't know, but it couldn't hurt to bring somebody in with that type of experience.
The defensive backfields have been really good with all those franchises too that he's been coaching with. Obviously, we know what he did with Charvarius Ward, who's an undrafted guy. L'Jarius Sneed turned him into a Pro Bowl caliber guy from a 4th round pick. He's a free agent right now. They might throw the franchise tag on him as the buzz out of Indianapolis. That might already be official, actually. Antrell Roll, Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, that whole crew with the New York Giants when they were winning championships too. So, I mean, his resume is good. He's a really good coach. Is he ready to call plays for the San Francisco 49ers is a big question. That's what Kyle Shanahan has to figure out. The fact that here's the other thing, timing-wise, if you're just really trying to figure this whole thing out. The 49ers passed over the in-house candidates last year when they hired Steve Wilkes. They brought in one outside candidate this year in Brandon Staley, who's unemployed. And now this is the first guy who's employed by another NFL team that they're interviewing. And this is after the in-house interviews. So does it tell you that Kyle's not super jazzed on elevating the guys he has on his current staff to defensive coordinator?
Yeah, I think he might know who he really likes. I've been, house searching with my wife, trying to find a house so I can finally have an office again. But there's a house that we're sold on. We love it. But that's still not stopping us from checking out some of the other houses, even though in our heads we're kind of sold on this particular layout. So I think he can have the coach that he really likes. But man, let me just make sure I, dot my I's, cross my T's. And I read the story about how Robert Saleh got the job. He kind of wasn't a defensive coordinating candidate at all, but he kept telling Kyle Shanahan, like, dude, just let me interview. Just let me interview. And then by the time Kyle finally interviewed him, like, whoa, he's kind of blown away by the knowledge and the philosophy and all that stuff. And he ended up hiring him. So I don't think it's ever too late in the process to maybe kind of switch up and change your mind. But I bet there's somebody in-house that he does really like. Just got to do his due diligence and make sure, again, he crosses all his T's and dots all his I's.
Or is he dragging his feet because there's somebody else he's trying to interview and trying to get, and he's trying to convince maybe a Belichick or a Vrabel, or maybe he's trying to convince his old buddy. He's like, hey, remember Rob Saleh, how I gave you that first job? You wouldn't be a head coach right now without me. Why don't you let me go bring Jeff Ulbrich back to his roots over here and call the plays for the San Francisco 49ers. Then you can call plays again for the New York Jets. How about that, Bob?
Absolutely not. If I'm Bob, click.
Sorry, Kyle. Thanks for the DC job, but no thanks. Man, you know what's rough is if the Jet staff would have got fired, that's 2 really good defensive coordinator candidates that are sitting there in that building right now, in Robert Saleh and Jeff Ulbrich, that well qualified to be defensive coordinators for the 49ers or whoever. And that'll be a year too late if they all get canned next year. That's probably, dude, if anything, Jeff Ulbrich sees the writing on the wall. Is like, dude, Aaron Rodgers better be healthy. It better be that same dude, or else I'm going to be looking for work and the job I want with the 49ers, where everyone gets hired as a head coach after they work there. That job's going to be filled.
I'm not gonna lie, man. I was super excited to watch Aaron Rodgers this year. I just love watching good football, and a lot of people complain about the quarterback rules. You know, hitting them too hard, they're throwing flags, but it sucked watching the Jets without Aaron Rodgers. So keep those guys healthy. Hopefully, Aaron Rodgers stays healthy. Coming off of a serious injury at the age he's at, I'm curious to see how he recovers. It looked like late last year. I think if they were a little better, he would have played. Obviously, they weren't playing very well down the stretch there, so he opted to really stay out and then say, "Oh, you know, look at the timetable. I was never going to come back." It's like, "Nah, dude, you were ready to come back. We all saw it." But I am excited to see what he looks like. It may be a blessing that he did it so early in the season, so early in the first game, to where now he might be, 100% and feel well, good, and ready to go.
More from Indianapolis at the Combine. You mentioned the Jets quarterback situation. New quarterback on the trade market. Niners need a backup quarterback. Can they dip back into that 2021 quarterback class with a few names that could be available there? And John Lynch's comments about the 49ers and the roster, and specifically Brandon Aiyuk. Is there anything to take away from those comments? Next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by BetterHelp Online Therapy. A lot of us spend our lives wishing we had more time. But the question is, time for what? If time was unlimited, how would you use it? The best way to squeeze that special thing into your schedule is to know what's important to you and make it a priority. Therapy can help you find what matters to you so you can do more of it. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Sometimes you just need that check-in with the therapist every week so you know you're on the path that you're trying to get to, and that will on its own create more time. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and get matched with a licensed therapist. Now, if you don't hit it off with the therapist, it's okay. You can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Learn to make time for what makes you happy with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOn. So I'm sure everyone listening to this podcast has heard the quotes and saw John Lynch at the podium in Indianapolis at the NFL Scouting Combine. But I'm going to read the quote here just as a reminder for some of the things he said. This is John Lynch talking about Brandon Aiyuk specifically. And he said this, quote, "Brandon's one we think incredibly highly of. One of my favorite guys around the building. The way he approaches the game, he's a competitor, he's a warrior, he plays with such physicality, also with the grace, the way some of the position his body can get into. And then he's got a flair for making plays when it matters most. And he's served us very well for this franchise. I think we've got a nice track record of extending the players that are important to us. And Brandon's a guy we want to keep around a long time." And he spoke about how, he loves that he's a homegrown guy and their track record of keeping those guys. And he did speak about, the difficulties of the roster and the realities of where things are with the 49ers roster. Some folks listened to his comments and they thought that there was some hinting in between the lines. And what's funny is it's a Rorschach test, because some people thought it was, oh, he's coming back. Some people think, oh, he's coming back to play on the fifth-year option. Some people, oh, he's getting extended for sure. Some people are like, oh, he's getting traded for sure. So, Croc, what did you hear when you heard John Lynch speaking about Brandon Aiyuk?
I kept waiting for that but. Like, oh man, he does all these things great, and he does this and he does that, but and he kind of said the but without saying it, basically saying, like, we have a lot of really good players that we've made highly paid players on this roster, and I think they're trying to figure it out. To me, it speaks more towards him playing on the fifth-year option and maybe not getting a contract done, and then maybe going the franchise tag route the following year. If I had to put odds on it, that would have the highest odds, like fifth-year option, franchise tag them, and then see what they do from there. But I fully expect Brandon Aiyuk, I think most people do, to be a 49er. But just listening to John Lynch's tone, it just sounds like regardless of however they have to go about it, they want him on the team because they view him as valuable. Definitely more valuable than my brother thinks the 49ers think Brandon Aiyuk is.
Yeah, he said so much of nothing, and John Lynch is really good at doing that, and he's been coached up. He's been a part of the media, so he knows what it's like to ask questions and talk through these things, and he's a Stanford guy. He's smart. He said nothing. There was nothing at all I could take away from what he said. So nothing I thought about Brandon Aiyuk and the 49ers changed at all from hearing him speak. And there's a lot of GMs out there talking and saying a lot of things, and most of them are really good at it. I've heard Ryan Poles, Chicago Bears GM, Justin Fields is gone. They're trading him for sure. But he did a really good job of not saying it straight up, but you could really feel it when he's talking that's just what they have to do. And they're going to draft the guy number one. It's what they have to do, but they want to do right by Justin. He wouldn't say we have to do right by Justin. He would say, we're not trading Justin Fields. He's our franchise quarterback. That's not what he said. He said, oh, we got to do right by Justin. And, he's talking around it, which means you can get some really good ideas. But John Lynch, the way he put his, I don't think there's much to take from it, but I don't know. That's just me. The Jets, by the way, are allowing the guy picked right in front of Trey Lance, who's already been traded from that 2021 quarterback class. They're allowing him to seek his own trade. I think Mac Jones is on the trading block. Croc, 4 out of 5 of that historic quarterback draft class could be all on new teams before the end of their rookie contracts.
And the guy that they said was generational, still, it was like, remember he measured in super skinny. He was 212 pounds at 6'6", and it was like, this is gonna look a little funny. Throwing motion, didn't win much his first game. I think he threw 10 touchdowns, 17 interceptions, and obviously he's gotten it going. He's playing very well. But interesting class for a class that was very polarizing for different reasons. I think you had a variety of different styles of quarterbacks. You had unique situations like Trey Lance, and I think it just shows, man, like everybody thought, when in the moment, you kind of think the best out of the group, but there was always that kind of thing in the back of your head, maybe only one of these guys will actually be good, because that's what the odds kind of tell you when you're drafting quarterbacks high.
You look at some other classes in the year before, the 2020 class is looking really good with Joe Burrow and Tua and Justin Herbert, and then now Jordan Love making good in late first round from that class. And then you go back a little further and you have the Goff Wentz class, and the things have been weird. So it's a coin flip, man. And you look at the NFL.
And Goff Wentz, real quick. Goff Wentz is weird because they both had really high moments, but then kind of weirdly, especially Wentz. Weird. There was a time where Wentz,
he was a hit before he was a miss.
Yeah, it was top 5 quarterback.
Yeah.
Of course, look, he's big, he's athletic, he's strong. Look at these throws, 33 touchdown passes, 7 interceptions. Would have been playing in the Super Bowl, instead of Foles if he didn't get hurt. It was he's way up here. Then all of a sudden, they're like, oh, we don't like the guy. And they just kind of fell off a cliff. And then with Jared Goff, weird situation, winning a lot of games, a lot. And then now you see what he's doing with Detroit. But even with his stint with the Rams, I think he's still the same kind of guy. But it didn't work out, and they ended up getting the Super Bowl out of trading him away. It just goes to show, man, with this quarterback position, it's so weird with just identifying the talent, identifying the fit, and then having the things around that guy for him to be able to maximize his ability to, whatever his skill set is, whether it's the coach, whether it's the players around him, whatever it is, man. I mean, it's there's so much. I didn't even talk about Mac Jones. I mean, he's starts and then he plays and he gets benched and then he's turn the ball over, and then he comes back, and then they're like, no, we want Bailey Zappi, and then they bring him back. And I mean, and that was a guy that made the Pro Bowl his rookie year. Yeah.
And when I'm hearing these rumors and stories and reports about those quarterbacks too, I just feel there's it's not even a 80% chance. There's a 99.9% chance that Wilson or Mac Jones is going to be a 49er, within the next 2 years. And who knows, maybe one of them maybe Mac Jones this offseason replaces Sam Darnold as the 49ers backup quarterback, because Sam Darnold's a free agent. The Niners do need a backup quarterback.
I can see that because Mac Jones does fit, but do you want that behind Brock Purdy? I think Brock Purdy, he's comfortable with who he is and what he is. I mean, he just had an amazing season, so I feel like there shouldn't be any chance of him looking over his shoulder. But you just want to make sure that you eliminate all possibilities. And I feel like if it gets a little weird, right, like it did during that 3-game skid, would some people be like, they didn't want to see Sam Darnold. And I even saw a few people say that. I wouldn't take that too serious. But would some people say in that moment, hey, man, what would Mac Jones look like in this offense, right? So I don't think I want somebody that polarizing behind Brock Purdy. Just go ahead and bring back Brandon Allen, somebody like him that nobody just wants to see, and just let Brock Purdy continue to run the show and have a good veteran. I say good veteran, but have a veteran behind him that can help him with the game plan.
Maybe use one of those 11 draft picks, one of those day 3 picks on a quarterback.
I mean, but do you want, unless you're going to keep 3 quarterbacks, do you want a rookie quarterback having to?
You're going to pass up the opportunity at the next Brock Purdy? What if they said that about Brock Purdy? We're not going to keep a third quarterback. We're not going to draft Brock Purdy.
I would say that right now, because Brock Purdy is clear. Like, even with Trey Lance, when it was time for him to take over, there's still a lot of question marks. We had no idea how it was going to go. Then, he gets hurt the second game of the season. I think with Brock Purdy, there is no question about, at least not to me, like who he is and what he brings and, his leadership abilities and all that. Like, you just played the Super Bowl with him. So I think because there's no questions about it, I would probably stay away from drafting a rookie quarterback. And I would maybe go more so with, again, Brandon Allen. Now, you don't want him to have to play. But, ideally, I think that's the kind of backup quarterback situation you would like.
You stay cheap at the position, too. That's why I would say, day 3 quarterback, see what you got. Maybe he beats out Brandon Allen. Maybe he doesn't. Stash a guy in the practice squad. Maybe you keep 3 quarterbacks. I don't know. They did keep 3 quarterbacks all year this year. Next, Croc. More buzz from Indianapolis. And one of those stories is really interesting. Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't impact the 49ers because he's getting nowhere near number 31, but not going to work out. I think it's a fascinating conversation. We've talked a little bit about it off the air. Let's talk about it on the air next. This episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 extra to play with if your bet wins. So get buckets right now with that first bet on FanDuel and bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and tons more ways to play and bet on NBA games. And, of course, there's still NFL bets to be had, even though there's no NFL season any longer. Of course, the draft props, which I love betting on at FanDuel, and Super Bowl futures. Bet on those Niners to win it next year. You probably get some decent odds right now. And of course, Major League Baseball getting started up, and spring training's happening, so I'm getting pumped on it. My son had t-ball practice for the first time today, so I'm getting jazzed on baseball as well. You can find all of it, every sport you can imagine, snooker, you name it, at FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Brandon Aiyuk for Brian Burns, Croc. What do you think? Brian Burns might get the tag and trade treatment. T. Higgins tag and trade, maybe L'Jarius Sneed as well. There's going to be some deals swung, I think, coming out of Indianapolis, Croc. Could the 49ers get in on some of it? Mike Silver had a report in the Chronicle about maybe some major names that could be potentially on the move at some point. He named guys like Christian McCaffrey and Dre Greenlaw and Deebo Samuel. And in some ways, you can look at a story like that and be like, well, Deebo Samuel doesn't, you're not going to take $25 million in dead cap hit. So Deebo Samuel's not going anywhere. But long term, Deebo might not see the end of his deal with the 49ers. And I've been talking about that a lot. You re-sign Brandon Aiyuk, it's okay, one more year with this group, and then you're trading Deebo Samuel next offseason. So at some point very soon, they're going to make some changes. Could those changes come sooner, though? Could you see a massive deal with one of their star players now, Croc?
First, you asked the question, Aiyuk or Burns. Here's the tough thing. Aiyuk has established himself as a guy in the locker room, and they've been taking swings at edge rushers. Now, let's make this very clear. Brian Burns coming to the 49ers is drastically different than anybody else that they traded for at the deadline, like Chase Young, Randy Gregory. They are not Brian Burns. But with that being said, what would Brian Burns command? Probably the same amount of money as Nick Bosa. So unless you're telling me they would, Burns and Aiyuk would get the same exact money, I see no way that happens. But if you told me that it's the same money, it's tough because I know how I don't want to say difficult, but Kyle with the development of his receivers, it takes a little bit longer. So I think it makes it a little bit more difficult to replace Aiyuk. But if you're just saying, importance to a team, edge rusher or receiver, I lean towards the edge rusher, especially one the caliber of Brian Burns.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it's definitely not happening, but people are asking about it. So I wanted to throw that one out there to you. It's just it's a fun fantasy sort of question at this point in the offseason with all these rumors flying around coming out of the combine. Marvin Harrison Jr. is not going to work out at the combine in Indianapolis, Croc. Might not run at all at his pro day. Is this the new normal? Is Marvin Harrison Jr. going to set a new trend for future prospects to follow where guys say, I'm a football player. Why would I train for a different sport? I'm not a track athlete. I'm going to keep training for football. If you like my tape, draft me. If not, draft somebody else.
I think most people's pushback right away, their initial thoughts would be, oh, he can do it because he's going to be a top 5 pick. But I do think that this will have a trickle down effect, and you'll start to see more guys do this because, like you said, why not? Why train for something that is not actually part of the game? I get it. From an analytical standpoint, you guys want those numbers and you want to be able to bang those numbers out and understand how this guy fits in this way and does he fit all your metrics. But as a ball player, I would definitely rather just put me through, not even put me through deep football drills because I don't even think he's doing drills.
I don't think he's doing that either.
So he's showing up. He is in Indy. He will be meeting with coaches and front offices, but he will not be doing anything. And not just at Indy, he's not even doing that at his pro day. Right now, he's working out at the Ohio State facilities. He's training, he's lifting weights, and he's getting ready for an NFL season. So I like it. And yeah, I think a lot of people will say, oh, he could do it because top 5. But I think this will be something that it starts off as a top 5 thing or top 10, kind of like Leonard Fournette and Christian McCaffrey. I thought it was really wild. Oh, they're sitting out of a bowl game. Like you never see that. You never see somebody just sit out of a bowl game. People are like, oh, well, they're making business decisions. Then next thing you know, and those were top 10 guys, right? Like Leonard Fournette was, I think, number 4 overall. Mm-hmm. Christian McCaffrey, I think, number 8 overall. So it's like, oh, understandable. You see guys now, if they even have any kind of draft stock, and it's not the college football playoffs, a lot of guys are sitting for those games. Also, even Florida State. Florida State played in a good bowl game. They were missing like 30 guys or something like that.
I don't really get the bowl game thing. Maybe I'm just way off on how important bowl games are. But like once you know, why not sit out week 7? Like why is the bowl game the one you finally sit out? It just doesn't. And when that's the goal all season long is to get to earn a bowl game or it's a playoff game basically. To sit that one out is just strange to me. Why aren't you sitting out at the moment you got a draft stock, you're going to the league, you start sitting out? That's the thing I never understood about bowl games. And then I do have a question. It doesn't apply in every case, but with Marvin Harrison Jr., like the competitiveness, the competitive juices. I wonder how hard that is for him to show up. And he was number 2 on Bruce Feldman's freak list before the college football season started. Like he could throw down some times, I'm sure. I wonder if he'll like watch these other guys and be like, oh, dude, I'm running faster than these guys. Remember Calvin Johnson? He like borrowed shoes. The story is like borrowed shoes and decided to run, and he wasn't going to run, and ran a crazy time. I wonder if there's any of that going on because I think some teams would probably ding guys for competitive nature and some of those things, and for that reason, it is easier for Marvin Harrison Jr. Like if his name was Marvin Crocker Jr., would it be a little bit more difficult for him? His draft stock might not be quite as cemented, right? If we talked about A.D. Mitchell, right? And his stock is all over the place with teams. If he's like, nope, not going to work out, that would absolutely hurt his draft stock. But Marvin Harrison's not going to hurt him. So it is definitely easier, but I wonder if it could start to become the norm, especially when you see the injuries for rookie receivers early in camp and in the spring because they started training for something else. It's probably not good for you. It doesn't make you a better football player.
And when you say training for, I think some people think like, oh, they're doing all these trainings, they're getting ready. I've seen a lot of what they do. There isn't a whole lot of emphasis on like really improving your craft as a skill position player. A lot of when they send it, because your money is in your 40 time. You run a fast 40 time, boom, you're paid. You run a slow 40 time, you're going to lose some money. So that's really what they focus on for 8 weeks, getting you a little bit stronger and making sure that you're flexible and you're going to run well. So instead of for that, 8+ weeks, focusing on that, something that doesn't really matter as much. I'm pretty sure he's still doing some dynamic stuff and some sprints and things like that. But man, let's focus on what's going to make me better at the next level. It start with him, and you might see a couple guys next year, and then eventually he's going to open up the floodgates. That's what I'm guessing. I said 2 years from now, so not next year, the year after that. I think you're going to see a lot of guys starting to sit out.
You see it sometimes with injuries where guys don't have a choice. Like remember, Crabtree never ran.
Right.
And he fell a little bit because some people called him the best player in that class. And he ended up falling the Niners to what? Pick 10? 9 or 10? Yeah. And then you see him on the NFL field, and you're like, maybe he wouldn't have run a fast 40 time because he's not quite a burner, And so I think Lamar Jackson's another one in the opposite direction. He's like, I'm a quarterback. I ain't going to run 40. And he never did. But I would have loved to see how fast he ran because I think it would have been 4.3s because the dude can fly. But he never ran a 40. And it didn't hurt him, obviously. Well, I guess it could have hurt him. But I don't know anybody that's drafting their quarterback off a 40 time that would have drafted him if he ran a faster time than where he was already drafted anyway, right? So I'm sure it did not hurt his stock.
I don't think it hurt his stock, but I think if Lamar Jackson would have went and ran fast, I think it would have helped his stock. Because
teams would have just been like, oh, this guy's too freaky. Like, look at it. Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, she ran a 4.28. Like,
yeah.
We got it.
Quarterback is a crazy weapon. We got to take a shot at this guy. I can see that. Yeah. Anyway, all right. Maybe a new trend is set. It would suck too because the combine's fun. I want to see. I get disappointed. Cooper DeJean, perfect example. He's one of the top guys I wanted to see work out at the combine, but he had a little injury. He's not going to work out the combine. That bums me out just as a fan, where I want to see all the guys compete on a level playing field with some of this stuff. All right, probably more out of Indy this week from a rumor standpoint involving the 49ers. We might even
grades too. We got to talk about the grades.
Which grades?
The team grades, the NFLPA.
We do have to talk about the team grades. That is on the list. The 49ers showing up pretty well in this list. TJ Watt, I thought it was a really funny quote TJ Watt had about the grades. If you don't know what we're talking about, the NFLPA interviews players and they give their grades on certain aspects of their football franchise. And JJ Watt had something funny to say. He's like, dude, when they're handing out sheets for voting on the Pro Bowl, guys will just give it to rookies and say, hey, fill this out, or just write all their friends' names down on the list. But they take it super seriously when it comes to this NFLPA ownership facility report card or voting on their team captains. And it's a very different thing. So that's interesting to me. So this does hold some weight. So let's get into that one tomorrow. We got more prospects to come. We're going to see some workouts and 40 times happening now throughout the weekend and into next week at the combine as well. Croc and I got you covered every single day right here. Locked On 49ers.